Hi everyone, Dr. B here. In the last couple of episodes I showed you how to use z-scores and the z-score table to calculate things like percentiles, to take a score like an IQ score of 110 and ask a question like what percentile would that score be. There's lots of things that we can do with z-scores, including what I call going backward. We could ask a backward kind of question if we already knew the percentile, like what IQ would be the 95th percentile IQ. I don't want to show you that today. Another very popular common use of z-scores is to answer questions like this that I have here. Questions like, is something rare? In psych research and in psych stats, we have a very specific definition of rare, and that is things that happen less than 5% of the time. So we are going to be referencing something called alpha, the Greek letter alpha, and alpha in psych research is often set at 0.05, meaning a proportion of 0.05. And that's the arbitrarily decided magic cutoff for things that are rare, things that happen less than 0.05, less than 5% of the time. Now, when something is normally distributed, for things that we think or know are normally distributed, like IQ scores, and as we're going to see lots of other things, we can ask questions about whether a particular item is in the rare part of the distribution. Well, what do I mean by that? Out in the tails, out in the less than 5% areas. It's only fair to take that 0.05 value and cut it in half if we've got to have two rare zones. Up here, we will have 0.025 zone for high-end scores that we consider so high as to be rare. And to be fair, we'll have a zone down here of 0.025 that is also so low as to be considered rare. Now you now know how to take a score of an item, of a variable that's normally distributed, and using the z-score formula and z-score table, find out where it lies on this distribution, what percentile it is. And now you know that if you have an item that falls in these two upper and lower zones, these so-called rare zones, then you have a score that would be rare. So if you get an IQ up here, that will be a very high, rare thing to be. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that a score could be so low as to be rare. So scores that are down here are going to be so low as to be considered rare. And what about all this space in between? This amounts to 95% of the population. This is what we often call normal. Now, the whole distribution is called a normal curve, but the normal part of the population, people who have normal intelligence, normal IQ scores, will fall in this middle zone. 95% of the population, therefore, is considered to have a normal IQ. Exceedingly rare portion of 5% or less will fall in these tails. So that's a very common use of z-scores to help determine if an item, if a score of something that we know is normally distributed or strongly think it is, if it's out there in the tails, if it's considered to be rare. So there you go. New definition of rare. Things that happen less than 5% of the time. Very often used in psychology research. See you next time.